Good evening, everyone. Pandy here of Pandy's Hair Candy and More. How's everybody doing? Fine, I hope. I am here to talk about Queen Sugar tonight, y'all. I have been supposed to bend it the reviews for this show, so I do apologize for my delay, but I'm here to discuss it nevertheless. If this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome. You already know what it is. Sit back and relax and chop it up with me. We're going to basically get into the latest episode, which was from last Wednesday. Today is Monday, and the next episode, which is going to be episode 5 of season 4, will be coming out on Wednesday. And I do apologize, guys. I've had a lot going on with the holidays and a little bit of illness. So I'm back. Okay. Um, Queen Sugar, season 4, episode 4. It was titled Skin Transparent. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in and we're going to talk about it. So basically, the episode begins with Nova and Micah. It appears that she's entrusting him to take care of her place while she goes on this book deal. You know, the notorious book deal, since she wrote the tell-all book about her family. He is probably actually the only family member of the Bordelon side that even still associates with Nova. They talk, and she goes over the house rules, this, that, and the third, and then she has a brief crying spell. Next, we see Auntie Vi sitting at her kitchen table in deep thought. And then in comes Hollywood. It is clear that Vi is shook and she's going through some things. Hollywood, being the husband that he is, tries to show love and affection to her. And she throws him off by telling him some mess about she needs to work on some recipes for the diner. But in all actuality, Jimmy Dale's resurfacing back in St. Joe truly has her shook. She's not exactly being forthcoming with Hollywood, but nevertheless, that's where we are. Hollywood actually tries to woo her back to the room, and she tells him that she'll join him just as soon as she's finished, like I said, working on the recipes. But something tells me, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm looking down at my notes because I will forget. But something tells me that Jimmy Dale has definitely got something on her, and it's gotten her all worked up and outside of her character, not to mention the whole fallout from Nova's tell-all book that has the whole family in shambles right now. Okay? Now moving on, next we see Charlie and Romero at the building that she donated to him for the temporary migrant workers healthcare facility. And I believe it's the old Queen Sugar plant that she lost back to the Landrys. It actually looks great. They have it fully staffed, it's up and running, and it's running on the real DL because they got ICE officials there, looking around those people up, and I believe they can all get in trouble if they found out what they were doing there. In walks Micah at that moment, asking what's going on. So apparently Charlie must have told him to meet her there, but she didn't tell him why. When Micah walks in, she introduces him to Romero as a physician assistant that works at St. Joe's, that does a lot of great things for people. there in the migrant community. She does not share the fact that, the whole time that you were out of the country, this has been my boo, and we've been keeping each other company. So it's kind of awkward. And Romero states that I know he started off saying that we opened, and Micah cuts him off and is like, wait a minute, we. And so that's actually when Charlie jumped in and took over the conversation, and Micah was deadly kind of side-eyeing him the whole time. So Romero exits, and they continue to talk and have the conversation between just the two of them. Charlie then receives a text at that moment as her and Micah are speaking, and apparently it's the private investigator that she hired to look into, who had actually sent Micah the hate mail that he received in the previous episode. Micah, of course, is asking, who is it? Did they find out who did it? And she assures him that the person has been arrested. They hug it out, and Micah thanks her for getting to the bottom of it. Next, we see Auntie Vi in Hollywood at the diner. She's still appearing to be very on edge, kind of snapping and fussing at everybody. And I believe it's her true hard grand opening. Hollywood comes to the back as she's in the back shuffling around with pies and things. And he tells her that, you need to be in the front. She's rambling on about how she needs to package up these pies. And Hollywood tells her, people are coming in to see Vi of Vi's Prize Pies. You have employees for that. And at that moment, she backs into one of her staff. I believe her name is Rhonda, causing her to drop everything on the floor. And Vi snaps on her, just chops the poor girl's head off. And Hollywood must have gave her that look like, now you know you did wrong. You sitting up here taking out all your anger and frustration that you have going on with Nova and Jimmy Dale coming back on the scene and just all this whole mess on her, and she ain't did nothing. So Vi must have read Hollywood's look, and she apologized to her and told her, she hadn't gotten much sleep the night before, and that she was sorry. And, she took full responsibility for it escalating the way it did. Hollywood tells Vi, look, you go ahead and handle what you need to handle back here, and I'll go run the front diner. And at that moment, Ralph Angel walks in through the back door. And Vi asks him, why are you coming in the back door? And he tells her, because your niece is coming through the front. And immediately, Vi is like, Rhonda, go handle that. So literally, as soon as Nova was at the door, getting ready to open the door and come into the diner, Rhonda steps out onto the front porch, and she's like, Miss Nova, I really hate to do this. I got a lot of respect for you, but your Auntie Vi has not changed the way she feels about you not being welcome here. And it's not going to change today. It ain't going to change tomorrow. And I'm getting really tired of going at her with what Nova said and then getting my head chopped off and having to deal with the attitude. Nova tries to plead her case, and Rhonda just straight tells her, Miss Nova, your Auntie Vi is just not ready to hear from you right now. She opens the door for a group of customers who are coming up the walkway, greets them, hey y'all, welcome to Aunt Vi's Prize Pies, and she closes it back as she goes in behind them. So Nova's standing there pitiful, looking in through the windows like a lost dog. Next, we see Ralph Angel back at the farm. He's having what appears to be an orientation introduction type meeting in front of the house with a group of newly released men and women. He explains that he was once in their shoes and he's decided to dedicate this new program, the Earnest Borderline Reentry Program. And he tells them to all come inside for some pie and to fill out the applications so they can get this thing started. Um, he basically says this is going to be an opportunity for you to not have to work with, a traditional job with somebody hounding you or giving you a hard time because of your criminal background. And, you'd be able to earn a living and basically not end up back in the system. I actually thought that was brilliant and it seems to be a good idea. And Ralph Angel seems very, very content with what he's doing with that situation. Next, we have Charlie meeting with a lady that I can't remember this lady, but she's met with her several times before. I don't think she's an attorney. I'm not sure if she is more of a local private eye there, but I know she's somebody that Charlie has used several times before to get information on the Landrys. And basically, it appears that the Landrys are doing their usual underhanded, sneaky, backdoor type deals. They have a plan in place to build a highway smack dab in the middle of St. Joe, which is going to gut most of the farmers' land, including the Borderline farm. Now we fast forward, we're back to another scene with a frantic Nova repeatedly trying to reach Ralph Angel by phone, who is clearly ignoring her calls. I'm not really sure why Nova is thinking that her siblings and her aunt is just supposed to take her call and hear her out and hear her side of the story. It wasn't her story to tell. She did this all behind their back, yet she's trying to explain it away while she goes off and makes money off their backs. It's just crazy to me. But anyway, I digress. At that moment, she gets a call from the publisher telling her that the book deal, based on the New York Times review doing so well, has now been extended to a 6-week national tour. And she is just smitten, like she's just accomplished conquering the world. She's just smitten. Next, we go back to the diner. Auntie Vi and Rhonda are conversating about how hard Rhonda's been working lately. Now, I thought Aunt Vi was going to give the girl a raise or something. She tells her to go and take a break before the next rush comes in. It was an awkward scene. Then we move to Charlie meeting up with the city councilwoman Isabel regarding Jacob Boudreaux running for her seat. That was the other tidbit of information that the lady gave her. He's planning to run for the city council so that when they go to do that plan to build the highway, running it directly through St. Joe, they won't get any resistance from the city council. These people got everything already planned out, figured out. They are determined to do what they want to do to make their coin. Okay? So she sits down with city councilwoman Isabel regarding Jacob running for her seat, only to learn that she's fully aware and she's willing to step down, and she has already agreed to bow out gracefully. Charlie is, of course, Charlie's a fighter. She's like, why would you do that? We could fight this the same way we fought for the prison. Isabel explains to her, Charlie, you need to pick your battles. That was a state level issue. This is federal, which means there's going to be deeper pockets and bigger people who are more willing to sell their mother down the river if the price is right. And she's just not willing to run up against a brick wall in the form of the Landrys or the Boudreaux. She's not willing to do it. So Charlie then meets up with Frances, which I believe is the mama. She then came back in town for a brief moment at some country club looking type of thing. She tells her about herself and they exchange words. The mama comes back and reads her for filth lightly, telling her she done read her sister's book. And if she was able to take a basketball player and conquer that and make it into an enterprise, she's not too far different from her. And she's like, yeah, but you guys stand to gain a lot of money out of this. And she's like, so will you. And Charlie's like, I'm not willing to sacrifice my family for any amount of money. And if you know that I was able to take a basketball player and do what I did with it, what do you think I'm going to do with Jacob when he decides to run for city council? I conquered Hollywood and basketball. What do you think I'm going to do with him? And she walks off and leaves her standing there. Meanwhile, Darla and her new boo, I can't remember his name, they're chilling at her place discussing music on a record player. He puts the vinyl on there on the needle and it starts playing some corny song and they stand up and start dancing. However, the whole time they're dancing, she's sitting there with this stuck on stupid look on her face, looking like she's ready to basically run out the door to the nearest trap house. Something was definitely off with her and I wasn't sure what it was at the moment. Now back at the farm, Benny, who is he's kind of like the foreman to Ralph Angel. He's teaching Blue how to drive a tractor. He's the one who helped Ralph Angel come up with the idea on how to get this reentry program funded, started, and up and running, and I guess he's helping him run it. They discuss the reentry program briefly, and Ralph Angel sends Blue in the house so that he can talk to Mr. Benny. And they talk for a moment, and as Ralph Angel's getting ready to turn around and go in the house, Benny says, can I ask you something, Ralph Angel? And he's like, yeah, what? And he's like, is it true what I'm hearing about you and Blue? And of course, Ralph Angel immediately goes into defense mode, like, what you been hearing? What you mean, what you been hearing? And he's like, about you not really being his dad and just taking care of him and loving on him the way you do. My biological daddy didn't even stick around to do nothing for me. And all the way you love on that boy, I'm just proud to be working with such a good man. I got much respect to you. And you could just tell that was warm to Ralph Angel's ears. It was warm to his heart and his spirit because he truly does love that boy. And he was heartbroken when Darla sprung the news on him that Blue was not his child, because basically he had been raising him the whole time she was out there in the streets being a junkie. Hey. Now, back at Charlie's crib, this Ninja Davis had texted her earlier telling her he was in town and that he had a surprise for Marcus. I'm sorry, y'all. I said Marcus, Micah. This ninja had the audacity to show up to their house with a young lady who he introduces to them as his daughter, Micah's sister, Tia. The look on both Micah and Charlie's face was speechless. The only difference is with children, they're a lot more understanding. They are more accepting of, an outside child being welcomed and getting to know them and bonding with them as their brother and sister. So Micah's cool, even though he's not cool, but he's cool enough to say, hey, Tia, you want to go get something to drink? And as they go back to get something to drink, Charlie goes off. She goes off on Davis, and rightfully so. She basically lets him know, you are not going to backdoor me into raising this child that you hid for 13 years. You and her mom slept together, you cheated, and you guys are going to stand in this mess. I'm not doing it. He actually expects her to come have lunch with them and, tells her, this child is innocent. And he basically expects her to disregard her hurt and her feelings and, put everything that she's got going on with this situation to the side and just be some happy, blended, divorced family. It's really quite bizarre. The average woman would have been cursed this butt out. But I digress. Meanwhile, at Nova's book release commencement ceremony, she reads when they call her up for her acceptance speech or whatever, she reads a newly released rendition that was not initially included in her initial manuscript. It's like a bonus piece that she's added. And she shares, I think the chapter was called Unspoken Memories or something like that. And she tells of being a 10-year-old girl and how she used to just love to spend time with her father. She says she remembers one day in particular, they were going out fishing. And Ernest went to go, I don't know if he went into the store to get bait or something along those lines, and she saw him come back stumbling with, his mouth busted. And she saw these 3 white guys standing behind him making racial remarks and statements and talking about what they would do with his little girl, his 10-year-old daughter. She says she remembers seeing the humiliation on Daddy's face. And the thing that she also remembered was Daddy didn't know that at night I used to sneak off out into the cane field and just run just to be free and get some air. And one night in particular, she snuck off out into the cane, and it may have been that same night or the next night. And she saw her daddy standing up knee deep in the soil, shoveling a ditch wide. And he was shoveling dirt on top of it, covering it. And she said, he didn't see me, but I saw him. I couldn't see what it was he was burying in the earth. But ever since then, my connection with the earth had been broken. The only thing I noticed is I never saw those 3 men again. Now afterwards, she was having like a book signing. They had her set up at a desk table type deal, and she was signing books. And in comes her ex-girlfriend from like season 1. She's basically throwing herself at Nova and asks her if she wanted to get together that night. Nova tells her some crap about she already has plans, which is part of the reason why they broke up in season 1, if I'm not mistaken. Nova was always killing her off because one minute she didn't know if she wanted to be lesbian or if she wanted to date a guy, because at that time she was also messing with that married cop. Now, flashing forward, we are back at Darla's. She decides to crack open Nova's book, and she reads the part about her. And it's pretty trifling, to say the least. It spoke about how they used to have to go and pick her up from all these low-budget motels, and how the room would just reek of soiled linen and desperation in the air, and how she'd be sprawled out on the bed with her eyes rolled up in her head and her son tossed over in a corner. It was pretty trifling. It was bad. And I just don't understand how Nova thinks she has a right to tell any of their story, but really hers. I mean, it's just wrong on so many levels. But that's what she does. And of course, that's what I believe Ralph Angel told Darla not to read the book, but of course she did it anyway, just like Charlie told him not to read it, and he did it anyway. Now, moving forward, Charlie is back at her place. She's going through old photo albums when Micah shows up telling her about the added story that was not in their copies of the manuscript. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" Charlie and Ralph Angel then go meet up with Auntie Vi at the diner to see if she knew anything about it. And of course, she tells them the problem with y'all young people is you think you gotta know everything. Everybody's entitled to keep some things between themselves and God. And they're like, "So you knew about this?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know for sure, but I know one thing. Your daddy used to watch Nova like a hawk. And there came a time he didn't have to watch her so much no more. And I didn't see those jerks around town no more." Meanwhile, Ralph Angel arrives back at home to find a crying Darla standing on his front porch. She collapses into Ralph Angel's arms crying about she wrote about it. She wrote about everything. They then show Auntie Vi having a breakdown at home. She's in the bathroom running some water, and you notice she hasn't really had any emotional reaction to any of this stuff. Hollywood yells in from the bedroom, "You okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to take a bath." And then all of a sudden, he hears these heart-wrenching cries coming out of the bathroom. And he stands up out of the bed because she ain't letting no emotion out. But she did in that moment. They then show Charlie dropping off Micah to link up with Davis and his sister Tia at the park. And then they end up showing Nova's silly tail, still sitting around calling everyone, getting their voicemail as if everyone's supposed to just talk to her. And that's basically where that episode ended, y'all. Now, I did leave out the part I just remembered where Darla stormed off over to Nova's house and went off on her, read her for filth, basically, rightfully so. And basically, that was it. Did you all see the episode? If you did, what were your thoughts? Did I leave anything out? Do you have any comments to add? Let me know down in the comments, please, what you think. I thank you all for taking a moment to rock with your girl. This is my first time reviewing this show, and it's actually quite lengthy, and I don't like to do these long videos to review because I know it's a bit much for you all, so I'm going to try to condense it down, or I may not review it going forward, just depending on what type of response I get. Again, I'm Pandy of Pandy's Hair, Candy, and More, and I thank you and appreciate you for stopping by. Please tap the the subscribe button and the like button. And if you enjoy the channel and what I do, please hit the bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload to the channel. I discuss wigs, natural hair care, I do random TV show reviews, and just talk about life. So yeah, again, I appreciate y'all for stopping by, and yeah, stop by again. All right, y'all. Until next time, I'll talk with you all later. Bye. Have a good night, everyone.